Thank you, Corey. That was beautiful. Thank you. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Clemson. We are located on the historic lands of the Eastern Cherokee and Southern Iroquois. And good morning. It's great to be here with you this morning. I'm Sarah Summers Hoskin, and I'm a member of the UU Fellowship of Clemson's Worship Associate Team. So whoever you are, wherever you are on your life journey, you are welcome here. Whomever you love, wherever you were born, whatever language you speak, you are welcome here. Whatever your skin color, whatever your class background, whatever your range of abilities, you are welcome here. We're so glad that you chose our fellowship as your place of worship this morning. Whatever your beliefs, whatever your politics, whatever your theology, we come together for worship in order to slow down and to listen for the callings of our hearts and our spirits. We come together for worship so that we can be reminded of our highest aspirations and continue to transform ourselves into our best selves. If you're joining us for the first time this morning, welcome. If you are a visitor and would like to stand, do we have any visitors this morning? If you would like to stand and introduce yourself, you may. You're welcome to. Anybody? Oh, yes.
Hi.
Good morning.
I'm Stacy Bing's daughter, and I am I would say a frequent visitor now. I've met many people, and that makes me very happy. And I am thankful that I am here for today's service because it's very poignant from Melanie. So, thank you.
Welcome. Make sure you join us after the service in the social room in the back. If you go down the hall there for some coffee and something good conversation there. They call it socializing. I think that's what we call it. So yes, we're pretty good at it. So yes. And if you're interested in getting our weekly newsletter so you can get connected to our community and our sharing of our joys and concerns and our collective efforts for social justice, please reach out to the office by email on our website. Okay, so we have just a few announcements, and you can look on the back of your bulletin. First of all, I would like to point out, just to say thank you to all the volunteers that make our services possible every week. And they're listed there on the top. As far as announcements for today, the program council meets at noon in the library. And so those of you that are involved in that are invited to attend that. Hey, I like this announcement. Look at this. 5th Sunday potluck. It's returning. Woo, okay, that sounds like fun. More socializing and food. Okay, so Sunday, September the 29th, following the service, we revive the 5th Sunday event and welcome Reba Cruz. Did I say her name, pronounce her name correctly? Okay. So who in here is organizing the 5th Sunday? Raise your hand. Holley is? Okay, Holley, okay. So thanks to Holley and to those who have helped put this together. They'll also talk about many issues. Reba will talk about many issues ranked high on everyone's list in the Congregational Survey of Social Action Priorities. And remember, a few weeks ago, we all took that, so please join us. The pledge drive begins in October, so any questions about that? Petra, where are you? Ah, there's her hand in the back. Okay, go see her. Yes. Oh, I like this one too. Talent show, October the 26th. Okay. Alan, raise your hand. Where are you, Alan? Alan. Okay. Well, you're Barbara. Okay. So, see Barbara or Alan about the talent show. That sounds like a lot of fun too. All right. So I'm going to turn over the opening words now to Reverend Holley Brown. Oops, that's sort of sticky down there.
We have tape that's sticky on the floor here. So, welcome. As Sarah said, I'm Reverend Holley Brown. I'm so glad to be here with you this morning. And I have these opening words called Invitation. It's a poem by Mary Oliver. It's too early in the service to be tongue-tied already. But her words are these. Oh, do you have time to linger for just a little while out of your busy and very important day for the goldfinches that have gathered in the fields of thistles, for musical battle to see who can sing the highest note or the lowest, or the most expressive in mirth or the most tender. Their strong, blunt beaks drink the air as they strive melodiously, not for your sake, and not for mine, and not for the sake of winning, but for the sheer delight and gratitude. Believe us, they say. It is a serious thing just to be alive. On this fresh morning in the broken world, I beg of you, do not walk by without pausing to attend to this rather ridiculous performance. It could mean something. It could mean everything. It could be what Ralph meant when he wrote, "You must change your life." Come, let us come into worship this morning, and in so doing, I invite you to rise in body, mind, or spirit, wherever you are, to join in singing. You can find number 389 gathered here in your hymnal, and it will be on the screen. So we're going to sing it twice through, and rather than doing it in a round, we're just going to sing it through, and then we'll do it one more time. So that's how Corey's going to play it, and we'll leave the slides up.
Aurelia, would you come up and help us light the chalice? It now is a time where we share our fellowship's affirmation, and this is in our order of service. So if you look on your order of service under chalice lighting, and we'll say these words together. We gather together in a spirit of love with justice as our guide. This is our chosen covenant to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth with freedom, and to care for one another. Thank you. I'm sorry. Karen's time for sharing. She's going to tell us a story, I'm sure it's one.
Since this morning's service is about spiritual practice, I thought I'd share a story which is about one specific spiritual practice and a multi-generational story of a young child learning from her grandfather about that spiritual practice. So today's story is Finding Om by Rashmi Bismarck, with pictures by Morgan Huff. Om. Apapa, Apapa, called Anu. Why do you keep saying Do you have a question about something? Hello, my Anu, Apapa chuckled. I'm not saying I'm saying Om. When chanted slowly, it makes the sound Om. I like saying it, Apapa. Anu felt the soft vibration of sounds fill her belly, chest, and head. It makes my body and my lips buzz. Sang Anu as she danced around the room. Ah, buzzing. A very good observation, Apapa answered. Is nature's very own vibration. It is the sound of the entire universe buzzing with life. That's what makes such a special mantra. What's a mantra? Anu asked. Mantra is an ancient Sanskrit word from India, Apapa explained. Man means mind, and tra means instrument. A mantra is an instrument of the mind. Vibrations made by the sound of a mantra are like music. The rhythm and song connect you to the mantra's meaning. Your mind, body, heart, and spirit sing in harmony. Anu was curious. So, Apapa, if this mantra, is really nature's vibration, does it actually connect me to the whole universe? What a super question, Apapa exclaimed. Shall we make this an experiment and see what happens? Anu nodded her head in excitement. Let's do it. Apapa joined Anu in his home office. Okay, scientist Anu, let's put this all together. What do you think will happen when you chant Om? I'm not sure, answered Anu reluctantly. What is your best guess? Asked Apapa. It's okay not to know all the answers, Apapa said gently. It's an interesting feeling, isn't it? This feeling of not knowing. Do you have the courage to find some answers? Anu nodded. Stay curious and confident, Anu. Trust what you uncover, Apapa continued. There are many ways to explore with Om. Pause to feel your body, breath, and mind. Allow the mantra Om to be held softly in your heart. Pay attention with kindness and care to everything that happens next. Over the next few days, Anu paused and remembered Om in her heart. Om, and my personal favorite, the Nam Nam Om. Most of the time, Anu's mind wandered. But every time her focus drifted away from Om, Anu noticed. The mantra was like a natural reminder, a reminder she could gently bring attention back to sounds, sensations, and feelings, right here with each Om. The more Anu allowed each Om to repeat, the more the thoughts in her mind slowed down. Though they never stopped, they didn't seem to grab her attention in the same way. Anu's body was soft and still. Her heart felt safe and calm. Her mind was clear. Her spirit felt free. Her whole self felt focused on just feeling and being with Om. As Anu sat in silence, a thought popped vividly into her mind. Apapa said Om is nature's own vibration, the sound of the universe buzzing with life. If the whole world is already singing Om, maybe I don't have to keep saying it. Maybe I can also listen. Listen with love to life's Om inside and all around me right now. Full of curiosity, Anu let the effort of chanting go. Confident in the wisdom she uncovered and holding the spirit of Om softly in her heart, she paid attention with kindness and care to everything that happened next. First, she listened to the sounds coming and going all around her. Sounds kept moving, and Anu kept listening. Next, she listened to her body. Was it still buzzing? As a smile naturally settled upon her face, Anu observed that her thoughts were no longer scattered. She was simply noticing everything happening here all at once. Her heart felt light and open. She was happy. She was relaxed. And at the same time, she felt like she could do anything and everything. Anu's heart, body, mind, and spirit felt so full of peace, courage, creativity, and love. Apapa was eager to hear everything Anu was learning with and Anu was just as excited to tell him. Her heart felt so full as she revealed her new discoveries. Apapa smiled with pride. Simply being yourself, aware of life as it is happening, and experiencing a little something about what that means. This is meditation. I'm so happy you are enjoying it. Let's go share with your sister.
Thank you, Karen. This is the time we set aside for the offering in order to give toward the financial vitality of this community. So also about 25% of the undesignated collection each week goes to an organization in the local community that we partner with. For the month of September, we are partnering with Clemson Child Development Center. Each week, we also collect non-perishable food for the Clemson Community Cares Food Bank. You may also give by going to the UUFC website and using the donate button. There you will see options for paying your pledge and donating towards the organizations we partner with. Thank you for your generosity.
This is a time during our service that we set aside for sharing of joys and concerns. It is a sacred sharing, reminding us of our connection to community and sharing the knowledge, reminding us that we are not alone. I've asked Sarah to place a stone into the vessel here representing our shared community for each of the joys and concerns that are shared today. Have a joy from Way that I am so lucky to have known Mel. It was like losing a family member because she treated everyone like family. Rest in love, my dear friend. Have a joy from Martha Alexander. Thanks to everyone that prepared the reception, those who brought food, put out serving pieces, carried out and arranged the tables and chairs, washed the dishes, and cleaned up after putting the social room back into order. And special thanks to Sarah McNeil, who was a coordinator of this, with the assistance of Marty, Petra, and Renee. I believe they worked collaboratively. Have a joy from Petra to extend gratitude to everyone that helped with and/or attended the Celebration of Life service yesterday. Being together makes a difference. From Paula and Jorge, have a joy that will celebrate the Mexican Independence Day next Sunday, September 15th. And they will play a gig at the Trailhead Tavern in Walhalla, featuring a variety of Latin rhythms. And a joy from Stacy, Nancy, and Bing's daughter, with gratitude for the book, The Invisible String, read at the service, and for my cherished family connections. I think that was the last service that she was here with us for. And I would like to add a stone for a school shooting that happened in Georgia this past week, in which 4 lives were lost, and continued violence that happens in our country, and just hold that. And place one final stone for all of the joys and concerns that are not spoken aloud, but remain quiet and tender upon our hearts this morning. Thank you, Sarah. And now we have a moment of transition into singing our children to their religious education classes, and we have Go Now in Peace, which will be shown on the screen, and you'll notice, I think I got it on there this week, of the 2 different versions of words. So if you hear 2 different things, you'll see where that comes in. I have a very brief meditation this morning, which will be followed by a hymn of meditation in which I invite you to remain seated and sing along in a few moments. But so I invite you into the spirit of meditation with these words by Elaine Westbrook. Let every moment be a prayer. With every sip of tea, let your lips move in thanksgiving. Be fully present to every stroke of the hairbrush, every cup of milk that you pour for the children. Be present without judgment or regret, without plans or expectations, or even dreams. And every moment becomes a prayer. If you'll join in singing, filled with loving kindness. what a vibration that song creates when you join in singing together. I was speaking with Elaine Faithful, I guess the week before last, about the service, and she shared a memory with me of a spiritual moment in her life, and so I asked her if she would share it with you all this morning, and she agreed. So
I have to confess that I feel a bit of a imposter standing up here talking about spiritual practice. I am one of those people, and I suspect there are others in this room like me, who attempt, sometimes more often reattempt and attempt again, to have a regular spiritual practice. I've tried meditation, I've tried yoga, I have tried Tai Chi. Very recently I tried Tai Chi. I've done prayer. I have done what's called shamanic journeying. I've done Lectio Divina, which is another whole ball of wax itself. And I've tried each one of these several times in the attempt, and what I thought I, as a spiritual person, needed was to have a regular spiritual practice as part of my daily life. I have failed miserably. But time and again, the universe has reminded me that I'm not a failure, that I have within me the capacity for spiritual deepness. And it does so in some of the most minute and spectacular ways. The story that I was telling Reverend Holley about, some of you have heard before. I was on a trip with my brother and some Sierra Club friends many years ago when this was possible. We went backpacking in the Wind River Range and in Wyoming, and we did so 3 years in a row. The first year we went, we had the pleasure of meeting the mayor of a little town called Pinedale, which is right on the west side of the Wind Rivers. And she told us about a mesa, a very small mesa that was outside the town in the middle of the prairie or desert, if you will. And she recommended that we go out there on our last evening. And she said, that might be a special place for you to say goodbye. And so we did. We climbed up the side of this little mesa, and it was right at dusk. And it was just a very quiet, very beautiful place. And so we turned to the west, and we were watching the sun go down on the mountains to the west of us. And we were all standing there very just our breath taken away with how beautiful the brilliant oranges and reds and yellows were as the sun went down. And then my brother tapped me on my shoulder and he said, turn around. And I turned around, as did the rest of us. And the moon was coming up on the east, above the winds. Whew. This happens every time I tell this story. There was the sun going down on the old day. There was the moon coming up on the new night. And we were standing there in the top of that little mesa, right in the middle of the coming and the going. And I've thought about that experience so many times, and it has been a reminder to me many times in my life that the only place that I can be, as the Buddha teaches, is right here in this moment. I may not have learned that sitting on a cushion but I learned that lesson standing in the middle of a mesa. Now, I mentioned that the universe has a way of sending me messages. And my practice, as long as I can keep myself open in my heart and in my head and in my eyes to the messages that are being sent to me, that is my spiritual practice. Saturday morning, I was feeling the particular weight that we were all feeling about Melissa's death and our service that we were going to hold for her. It had been a difficult 3 days for me preparing for that. And I took my little dog out for a walk and headed back to the house. I spotted a tiny little plant growing up between the cracks of a sidewalk. That tenacious little plant was going to live, and it was blooming with the brightest pink flowers. I've thought a lot about those little 3 pink flowers in the past 24 hours. And they taught me to remember 2 important words in my life right now. Living with Parkinson's requires a great deal of tenacity and perseverance. And if I could have a pink flower tattooed on my hand right now, I would. Because the universe was teaching me an important spiritual lesson. That is my spiritual practice.
Thank you, Elaine.
Ooh. Very moving. I would like to offer this story. It's called Balance, and it's written by Susan Manker Seal. Deep in our innermost core, we yearn to be connected with the mystery we call God, or nature, or spirit. We yearn for that sense of oneness with each other and all creation, to know our place and our value. And often, we yearn for someone to show us how to get there, to direct us to the right path that will lead us on the way to a deeper spirituality. There is no one right path to a deeper spirituality. There are many right paths, and the one you choose may serve for a while and then need to be changed over time. Spiritual practices are aimed at helping us understand that connectedness, to sense our oneness, to the end that our yearning is appeased in actuality. For whether you call it godness, God nature, God spirit, or oneness, or some other word, the feeling of presence is very real for many of us. It is a feeling which sustains me and fills me with appreciation for all that is my life. We can practice spirituality in our daily lives, in our daily activities, by remembering to pause pay attention and feel appreciation for what is before us. Paying attention means using all of our senses and being in the world and in the moment. Out of our busyness, we are called back into balance, back into ourselves, and the silence of presence being. But it is not just back into ourselves to which we are called. It is also to the awareness of the continuous presence of the environment around us and within us. We are called to remember our relationships and our dependencies. We are called to once again feel the oneness which sustains our being in balance with creation, and to do so with wonder and appreciation. Okay. All right.
Sorry, I changed things up just a little bit. I have another reading to share with you that is a playlist of the Spirit by Connie Simon. And this comes from a blog that is put out on the weekly basis every Wednesday morning. And there's a little reflection each week, usually a prayer at the beginning or a quote. But so I'm only sharing an excerpt of that longer piece this morning. And Connie said, "I know it's corny, but it's true. Think of all the music that you know, every song you've ever sung, or danced to, or heard on the radio. Every single one of them is different in their arrangement of the same notes. Using the power of imagination, composers have mixed those notes up in a gazillion different ways to express a multitude of emotions. No matter how I am feeling, happy or sad, sick or well, fragile or unbreakable, loved or unloved, I turn to music. Music is my solace and my comfort, the one thing that is always with me. I feel its vibration deep in my soul. It's my spiritual practice. Music can claim me, excite me, and sometimes its beauty can even move me to tears. I have playlists for exercising, celebrating, mourning, driving, house cleaning, and some just for being. From Bach to James Brown, there's an arrangement of those same notes for every occasion of my life, including the hard times. Music tells the story of my life. I recently went through a really rough patch. I was recovering from an accident and still trying to keep up with school and my other responsibilities. I felt out of control and lost. Once again, music saved me. I played quiet, soothing music when it hurt to move. I sang an inspirational gospel song for encouragement when I began to stretch my sore limbs. Today, I listen to the thumping hip-hop as I work my muscles back into shape. I am forever grateful for my music, those do-re-mis that fill my soul and provide the playlist of my life." And I had another reading, but it is quite long, so I'm going to just hit the closing words of that much longer reading that I asked Sarah to let me kind of fill in the last bit, and it is of gardening as a spiritual practice and all of the ways it teaches you patience and attention and reverence. But in her closing words, her final analysis is that gardening is an active participation in the deepest mysteries of the universe. Through gardening, we learn that we constitute with all growing things a single community of life. Gardening puts us in touch with the deepest of human emotions: faith, gratitude, disappointment, patience, and hope. Gardening puts us in touch with life's greatest mysteries: death and rebirth. And now we have the choir to share Love Flows In with us. Thank you. That was beautiful. And indeed, love does flow in. This morning, the service focuses on the invitation to spiritual practice. And you might be familiar with the service that we had back in this early spring that had a similar topic, but I think it bears repeating, reminding us that spiritual practice doesn't have to look one way. So, with that in mind, do any of you have a spiritual practice that you do, not daily necessarily, but on a regular basis? A few of you, okay. Now, to reframe that. Do any of you do some kind of practice on a regular basis that you do with intentionality, that you do with a purpose? Maybe a few more of you. There are practices that we can find that are grounding, that help us center ourselves, that we might not always think of as spiritual practices. So the excerpt of a piece that Sarah read came from the book Everyday Spiritual Practices by Scott Alexander. And each chapter is the perspective of a different individual spiritual practice. And boy, is it wide-ranging, from gardening and balance to relationships with family. The author of that piece was reflecting again and again on, oh my gosh, kind of what Elaine said at the beginning of what she shared, of like trying to fit into this thing of meditation or prayer or it to look a certain way. But then she realized that she does things every day that she could pay attention to. So she decided that as she's having her breakfast and seeing her family, rather than getting into the busyness of reading something on her phone or other things, is to just stop and look at her husband and her kids' faces, to really pay attention for even just a few moments every single day as a spiritual practice. Had someone that I met years ago that talked of weeding, so not just gardening in general, but specifically weeding her yard and how it was overgrown and had so many weeds, but that as she was picking them and that annoyance as it began, as she continued going, she found herself moving into a rhythm and thinking about the world and the way she was connected to it. We have our principles and our value statements that focus on interdependence, that connection not just to one another, but also to the natural world around us, and how we can deepen those connections by just a little bit of shift in our way of thinking about the world. Another chapter in Everyday Spiritual Practice has the practice of reading as a spiritual practice. And that's not picking a particular spiritual text. It's not saying the Bible or the Quran or any of those kinds of things, but to slow down, to pick a passage, maybe even randomly, and read it, reflect on it, even memorizing it as a regular spiritual practice. Now, the really impressive thing is that person I've watched, she's a minister, and she gets up and gives sermons without notes. I aim and aspire to such things, and so far I haven't really touched my notes today, so we're trying new things together. But in her reflection is just one of many different ways of experiencing the world. Another of the authors noted how you come across something that you find meaningful. Maybe it's a quote or a picture, and you place it somewhere that you see regularly. Maybe it's on your refrigerator, maybe it's on your bathroom mirror, somewhere that reminds you of that connection. And as I was thinking about this yesterday, I remembered a quote by, now this one's, I'm going to have to look up. I have to look at my note. But Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, not sure I'm saying that right, got tongue-tied. But what he said was, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And spiritual connection, ministry takes many different forms. I've been listening to a book about Mr. Rogers, a biography, and even better, it's being read by LeVar Burton, known for reading Rainbow and other roles as well, and him reading about Mr. Rogers is just giving me so much joy these last couple of weeks. Did y'all know that Mr. Rogers was a minister? A Presbyterian minister, okay. And he at one point mentioned that he felt that his show that he did was a type of ministry for him. And so I can't say with any certainty what Mr. Rogers considered particular spiritual practice or not, but I started to ponder this of his taking the time as he entered the room to take off his jacket and put on his cardigan and to change his shoes, changing that space, making it Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, and settling in to provide this ministry, this meaning to all of these kids for generations. We light our chalice every week, the beginning of our services, to mark the time that we share together as a type of practice of centering us in this space, in this time of worship. There are so many things that we do in our lives that can give us meaning. We don't have to think about them as spiritual practice. It doesn't have to be a prayer or a meditation, although there are different forms of meditation. They don't look the same. Some, it's guided meditation. Others, it's sitting in silence, walking. Thich Nhat Hanh mentioned in one of his books about washing dishes as a spiritual practice. To just be paying attention to sips of the tea, as the meditation earlier mentioned, or pouring the milk. There's moments happen every day. And it's great if we can say we have a regular spiritual practice, whether it's every day or not. Sometimes writing something down can help us have an accountability to continuing a practice, or having a friend or someone that is in our lives that we can check in and say, hey, you said you were going to do this thing. I wonder if you're doing that. Can you share a little bit about it? Can you tell me something? And one last thing that I want to lift up is I was re-listening to a piece by Brené Brown recently called Rising Strong as a Spiritual Practice. And in this, she talks about compassion as a spiritual practice. She says that empathy isn't a spiritual practice. It's a skill that can be taught, and it can contribute to our ability to have compassion. But that compassion is a spiritual practice. And I think that's why the word compassion shows up in our principles, in creating a more loving, a more just, more compassionate world. And I've talked to a few of you that have some resistance to how much we use the word love, but most of you say that you can get along with compassion, that it's a more active version, because love is such a big idea, right? And it can sometimes be thrown around without much intention. But compassion as a spiritual practice, something that our values call us into doing as a faith. So whether it is thinking of the ways in which we share compassion with those around us in the world, whether it is meditation or prayer, or noticing the setting and rising of the sun and moon in the same moment, weeding the garden, or just paying attention to the person next to us, really honing in, paying attention to their faces, what they're saying, how you're interacting with them. It is those connections that can truly nourish us, that can help balance our lives, can help ground us into finding something deeper. Because we are indeed, I think, spiritual beings having a human experience. May we find something deeper together. May it be so. May we make it so. And blessed be. You are now invited to rise in body, mind, or spirit, wherever you are, to sing our closing hymn, Blessed Spirit of Life. May we find meaning in the world around us. May we find hope and love and compassion through practice, whether we consider it spiritual or not. May we go from this place in peace and return in love when we are together again.